Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association. Missouri produces wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details on the variety of products made in the state are at choosewood.com.
From the St. Louis Public Radio Newsroom, this is The Gateway. It's Tuesday, February 16th. I'm Wayne Pratt. It's not easy to get an appointment for the COVID vaccine in St. Louis, so many are traveling a few hours to get that shot.
And I thought, I might as well try to get on in Hannibal too, just for the heck of it. And so I signed up.
In just a few minutes, St. Louis Public Radio's Kayla Drake reports on how far people are willing to go to get immunized during the pandemic. Health officials in Missouri say slightly more than 10% of the state's residents have received at least one shot of the COVID vaccine. Nearly 875,000 doses have been distributed, and roughly 240,000 residents have received both shots. The state had been planning more mass vaccination sites this week, but many through Friday have been canceled because of the weather. Missouri health officials say they will be rescheduled. In Illinois, the state has surpassed 20,000 coronavirus deaths. It hit that number officially yesterday. Health officials also report another 2,100 deaths from suspected cases of COVID-19. Illinois reached a positive milestone over the weekend. The percentage of the state's population that has been fully vaccinated surpassed Illinois' COVID case positivity rate. A former state senator from southern Illinois wants to challenge J.B. Pritzker for governor. Benji Jeffords reports.
Republican Paul Schimpf of Waterloo announced he is running for Illinois governor in the Republican primary. Schimpf was elected to the state Senate in 2016. He also ran for Illinois Attorney General in 2014 after serving more than 20 years in the Marine Corps. After the record-breaking spending in the last election for governor, Schimpf says he's ready for the challenge.
I know that Governor Pritzker has a lot of resources. I don't expect to be able to match him dollar for dollar, but I do expect to be able to get my message out. And with a lot of hard work, I do expect to be able to win this race.
Schimpf says he's running his campaign on working hard, telling the truth, and to keep his promises to renew Illinois. I'm Benji Jeffords.
A Republican from Pulaski County says his colleagues in the Missouri House made the right call in passing legislation barring law enforcement agencies from enforcing federal gun laws. St. Louis Public Radio's Jason Rosenbaum has more from Representative Bill Hardwick's appearance on Politically Speaking.
The House's passage of what's known as the Second Amendment Preservation Act is a reaction of sorts to President Joe Biden's calls for more gun control. It would also open up a person or entity, such as a police department, to lawsuits if they're found to deprive a Missouri citizen of the right to keep and bear arms. Hardwick disagrees with the contention that the legislation is unconstitutional and also adds this is a natural tension that exists between states and the federal government.
You have a power. The state is going to call you and question you on that power. If that power is constitutional, if it's allowable, if it's in your nebulous power as the executive.
The Second Amendment Preservation Act is currently pending in the Missouri Senate. I'm Jason Rosenbaum, St. Louis Public Radio.
COVID-19 vaccine doses are trickling into the St. Louis region. Eligible residents desperate for a shot say they are having a tough time finding one close to home. St. Louis Public Radio's Kayla Drake reports people are driving up to 3 hours away to get immunized during the pandemic.
Nadine Hudson was determined to get the COVID-19 vaccine. She heard from friends that the more rural the area, the easier it is to score a dose. So she started scouring the internet.
I just pulled up maps and I went through the counties. I looked at their population and I wanted to get populations that was smaller.
After 10 hours of research, the retired South St. Louis County resident spotted a clip in a Perryville newspaper. The Perry County Health Department promised 975 doses to the first people who showed up. She left at 2:30 a.m. and got vaccinated a few hours later. The scarcity of the vaccine in St. Louis has prompted scores of eligible St. Louis area residents, like Hudson, to embark on road trips into rural Missouri. People have traveled all over the state for the prize shot, from Hannibal.
And I thought, I might as well try to get on in Hannibal too, just for the heck of it.
To Caruthersville.
We didn't want to travel down that far. Like we always say, you have to go where the vaccine is.
And Cape Girardeau.
I know that there were many more than 10 people from St. Louis that were down there that day.
That was Lori Vincent, Richard Randall, and Mary Dunger. Just a few examples of people who could only find vaccine outside of St. Louis. And the reason people are traveling so far is that the St. Louis region has lower amounts of vaccine per capita than rural areas. That's according to Dr. Alex Garza, who leads the St. Louis Metropolitan Pandemic Task Force.
We're in this region where we're vaccine poor, and we're trying to figure out what is the most equitable way to distribute vaccine when there's so many places that have no vaccine.
Missouri Governor Mike Parson disagrees and says the state's allocations are fair. But Missouri counties in the St. Louis metro fall below the state average for vaccinations per capita. And the number of doses coming into the St. Louis region dwarfs in comparison to demand. Just over 33,000 doses are shipped a week. Garza estimates more than 700,000 people are eligible for the vaccine in the St. Louis area. Mary Dunger, the woman who traveled to Cape Girardeau, says for every one person who has been vaccinated in the St. Louis area, she knows 5 that have traveled outside the region to get one. Dunger, a North St. Louis County resident, says she knows the people who can afford vaccine trips are the ones who are going. These trips often take up an entire day with little notice. That's nearly impossible for eligible people who have strict job schedules or who rely on public transportation to make the same journey.
I can see that there's a privilege there that I don't feel good about, but I didn't create the situation. Anybody I know that's done this has had internet access and been able to easily, once they become aware of the possibility, they're able to get out there online and pursue it.
So, if you can travel outside the region to get the vaccine, should you? One bioethicist says you should think twice. Nancy Berlinger is a researcher at the Hastings Center, a think tank in New York. She says people who are able to travel should ask themselves if they're really the most vulnerable.
So you could both be crowding out people in a rural area and also kind of queue jumping over people closer to home who really need access but can't make that, 200-mile round trip. So it's not a strategy that helps people most at risk of COVID.
Health officials in rural areas agree. Cape Girardeau's Health Department Director Jane Wernsman says she doesn't mind that people are coming to her town for the vaccine, but it's not ideal. She would rather they receive a vaccination closer to home.
So that we're able to vaccinate a few more individuals from within the region with vaccine that is here and give them the opportunity not to have to travel.
But still, many in St. Louis are desperate and able, so they're willing to take the drive. I'm Kayla Drake, St. Louis Public Radio.
Our Brian Heffernan edited that report. Shula Newman is the executive editor of St. Louis Public Radio. Music by Ryan McNeely of Adult Fur. I'm Wayne Pratt. From the St. Louis Public Radio Newsroom, this has been The Gateway.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association. Missouri produces wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details on the variety of products made in the state are at choosewood.com.